Hi, good morning, y'all. So thank you for being part of Hacktoberfest 2020. So before we start, I would like to know my audience. Do you have any prior experience in open source software, or do you know anything about that? Are you a beginner or anything? So let's start. So first of all, what is open source? Open source software is free, available to use, redistribute, and modify. So what is open source software? Which software comes to your mind when you hear the word open source? So, why we need open source software or what is open source software? Let me give you a brief intro. Open source software means we can use that without paying any money. We can redistribute that software and we can modify, we can contribute to that softwares or open source projects. So now this is something you need to understand. Freeware versus open source. Most, there is a misconception that any software that is free to use is an open source software. No. What makes it different is that in case of an open source software, we can see the source code. We can see the source code of that software and we can contribute to that software. Whereas in case of freeware, we don't have any access to the code base or the source code of the software. We only have free, we can only use it for free. So that is one of the major difference between freeware and open source software. So when you look at a software, if it is free to use and the source code is available and we can contribute to that, then it is termed as an open source software or an open source project. So why we need open source? This is a question of high importance. So just think, how many of you are using paid softwares? For example, if you're using a code editor, most probably you will be using Sublime Text, Atom, or Visual Studio Code, which are all free to use and open source. Do you pay for such an ID or a code editor? I guess no, most of you don't pay for such things, right? So why we need open source software is that there was a time when there were patented softwares. For example, the case of Windows. So the operating system of Windows was paid, but even now it is paid. So uh, we didn't have any access to the code base or anything like that, and we have to pay for it. But the story changed when a small person come up with an idea of Linux. So we need open source software to increase the efficiency of developers. And one of the major factors of open source software is that we can collaborate with developers all around the world, not just a person who is working in our firm or not just a person who is studying with us. We can work with a large community, and hence the quality of the project will be that much higher. So why contribute to open source? This is something that you have to understand about. Code more, learn more. So the number of open source projects and repositories out there is numerous. You can contribute to that. You can contribute using your code and learn from that. Think of it like most of the frameworks that you use nowadays are open source. For example, if you are considering web development, React.js is an open source library by JavaScript. Then comes TensorFlow, which is again open source. PyTorch is an open source framework. There are so much to that. So uh, these projects are being open source so that many people can contribute to the same. There are so many which make use of this frameworks for their projects related to AI, ML, or web development, and they can contribute back to the community. Maybe a library, maybe a feature update. So you can code along and you can learn along with that. And large support by the community. The community of open source contributors is very wide and vast. So it is not a small community. If you have any doubt or if you want a feature request, there are so many out there to help you out. And one of the major factors is code quality. So when you're putting a code as open source, everybody can see that, right? So you will be tempted to write a quality code with proper documentation, with proper unit test and all, which we will not otherwise think when we are using a proprietary software. So can you guess any open source projects? Do you have any guesses on open source projects? I guess most of you know many of them. Any open source projects? So let's see. I would like to around with this thing. This was one of the benchmark in case of open source software, the Linux. Yeah, I see very good answers, React, Flutter. Yeah. So I want to discuss about Linux. And you know the person right behind that, Linus Torvalds, the founder of Linux. So it was actually a small project that he did during his college days. And he didn't have enough support to come up with that project, I mean, to build an OS like that. So what he did was he open sourced the source code of that project. So many developers around the world contributed to that and created Linux OS, which we see nowadays. There are so many distributions of Linux, such as Debian, Manjaro Linux, and various different uh, distributions of Linux. So this was one of the benchmarks in case of open source project, and it is the longest running open source project till date is Linux. So actually, I earlier asked you a question, right? Why do we need open source software? I will just give you a brief figure. Almost all the servers in this world currently running, 90% of the servers works on Linux. Just think, if we had to pay for that 90% Linux servers, what would it have happened? If we had to pay for all those servers, I mean, when you're using a cloud, usually you pay for the service, not for the servers or the Linux OS. If we had to pay for the OS or the Linux kernel, then it would have been very much costlier, right? So there are so many patented softwares, and once open source came into light, many developers supported the concept of open source, and later it began to expand in different areas. That is, you know about React, React Native, Flutter. These are all open source projects with help now, right? So now, is open source limited to software only? Have been saying about open source software all the time. No, open source is not just limited to software. Open source is also possible for hardware. One of the best example is Arduino. Do you know how Arduino is open source or what makes it an open source hardware? See, in case of Arduino, the architecture of the Arduino board is open source. Anybody can recreate Arduino. So when you go to a shop, you will not Sometimes you may not be buying the original Arduino board. Instead, they will be buying uh, something manufactured by others using the same architecture. Right. So there are many, and you can contribute to hardware by providing architectures, different solutions, and all. So I just wanted to make sure that software open source is not just limited to software; it's uh, applicable to hardware as well. So now we are going to the second part. I mean, how we contribute to open source or what is uh, upcoming in the way. So I just need an answer for this question. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to save multiple versions of the same file? I guess this would be a short answer for designers as well. I would like to see the answers in the comment section. Okay, so let's say the next question. So have you faced this situation where you want to go back in time and undo a mistake? You published a code, but it had a bug, and you had to resolve that. Have you faced these situations? Yes, many times. Yeah. So that's where version control systems comes into play. Okay. So version control systems help you to keep track of your code. Uh, what are the changes that you make? Which who made that change, and what was the change that made how which lines were changed? And the working of Git is pretty amazing, and it was also introduced in 2005 by Linus Torvalds. So what he did was he wanted a version control system for his own Linux kernel. So he made Git and made it open source, which later came to be one of the backbones of GitHub. So Git is not the only version control software version control system that's available. There are different like Subversion, Mercury, etc. But one of the most popular version control systems used in the world is Git. Now I told you about you can contribute to open source software, open source projects. The code is, I mean, the code is available all the time. So, how to ensure that the developers always have access to the latest code base? Any ideas? I mean, if you want to know what is the current code of Linux, if you have to see the current source code of Linux, how will you do that? So, now we know how are the maintainers supposed to review the contributors' code. Earlier I said you can contribute to open source software, right? But what if your contribution doesn't comply with their rules and regulations, or there is an error, or you have to make something better in that contribution? So there will be maintainers for open source projects, right? Uh, the sole maintainer of Linux project is Linus Torvalds himself, and he's the only maintainer of that project. Okay. And if you think in case of different frameworks like React, TensorFlow, etc., React is maintained by Facebook and TensorFlow is maintained by Google. PyTorch is again maintained by Facebook. So they have a set of maintainers to review the codes that is being contributed to the repositories. Right. So these two questions, the answer to these two questions is repository hosting service, and now comes GitHub. Uh, Repository hosting service means when you use Git, it is just a command line tool. You will have to type some commands in terminal to keep track of your code base. But in case of GitHub, it provides you a web-based graphical user interface to view what are the files in your repository, uh, what are the latest changes that you have made, how you can contribute regarding pull request and all. So GitHub is the most used repository hosting service in the world. And second to GitHub, we have Bitbucket and GitLab, two other repository hosting service. And GitHub was recently acquired by Microsoft. So now let's dive deep into some things. What is the basic structure of an open source project? Even if you, even if many of you have GitHub accounts or you have contributed or you have put on a project in that, do you know what is the basic structure of an open source project? The structure of an open source project, three main things that we have to understand is about the code base. So, what is the code base? Code base means the main project code. This is your repository itself, uh, the main project code. Then documentation. You know, in every GitHub repository, we have a README, right? Most of us doesn't put a proper documentation, but one of the major uses of documentation is that even if a person who doesn't have any idea about the project comes to look at your project and wanted to contribute that, he need to know what is this project is about, what are the tech stack used, etc. So we have to provide such details in documentation. If we go through the documentation of the so-called open source projects such as Linux, React, and etc., we will come to know about uh, a huge amount of things regarding that particular project. So documentation is very important. If you are hosting open source project, not just putting your code into GitHub, actually if you are hosting an open source project, documentation is very important. Then automated tests for main project code. I mean, earlier I mentioned about unit test. Okay, automated tests are basically unit tests just to make sure that there are no errors in your code system. And supporting files and folders for deployment and DevOps. DevOps is a concept that will require more time to comply, but you can check that in the internet. So the next thing that we have is issue tracker. So what is an issue? Uh, this is something, as I said earlier, very important. So if you are hosting an open source project, let's say, I will give you an example. The website of DSC MBCT is hosted on GitHub. Okay. So a user want to add a feature or he finds a bug in that. So he can report that as an issue. Okay. So that is what issue trackers are for. If that person reports it as an issue, then one of the maintainers of the project will look into that issue and solve that. So an issue can be a bug, an error, a feature request, an enhancement, anything. Okay. So users can also report bugs here, and developers also use it as a to-do list, which means that, as I said earlier, our open source project is not just maintained by one person. There will be many, right? So, for example, consider one of the maintainers who works on backend want a feature update in the front end. So he will assign a task or an issue to a maintainer who will be working on the front end. So that we can do through the issue factor. Now, this is something very important. Pull request. How many of you have heard about pull request? I guess since the time of Hacktoberfest, many of them are hearing this term, right? Yes. So, so what is pull request? So if you are contributing to a code, uh, firstly you will be making a copy of the open source project and you will be making the changes in that copy of it. Okay. And after that copy, you will create something known as a pull request, which is the proposed changes to the original code. And you will send a pull request. It is up to the maintainer whether to merge your pull request or whether to accept your code. Okay. So once we get hands-on on GitHub, you will get more idea about pull request. Okay. So now this is something I want to introduce you to Hacktoberfest. So, what is Hacktoberfest? Have any of you heard it before? I mean, since it's October, many uh, organizations are hosting events for Hacktoberfest and all. So, have you heard about Hacktoberfest? See, Hacktoberfest is an initiative by DigitalOcean and Dev.to to in to increase open source contribution. Okay, so in order to do that, if you complete 4 pull requests, 4 valid or quality pull requests in GitHub to any open source projects, then they will provide you with a uh, special edition Hacktoberfest t-shirt and some swags. So it's not just about the swags, it is an opportunity to get started. So one of the major attractions of Hacktoberfest is that if you are a beginner, you have repositories to contribute. If you have If you are a seasoned developer, you have repositories to contribute. No matter what your experience in tech is, you have something to contribute to. So that is one of the major attractions of Hacktoberfest. Okay, so uh, when you start open source projects, Hacktoberfest during the time of Hacktoberfest, we have many beginner-friendly repositories hosted in GitHub. So you can contribute to that. And once this contribution is valid, or once this contribution is valid, you will be receiving a t-shirt from the Hacktoberfest. Okay. So I just want to make sure that all of you to do meaningful contributions. It's not just like changing a typo or etc. You need to make something good. You need to make some quality contribution to that. So you can do this by tracking issues. I will just show you a hands-on session now. So now after this slide, we will be switching to a hands-on session where I will walk you through how to make a pull request and how the GitHub works. Okay, so the normal workflow of GitHub is that you will have a main repository and it is known as the master branch, and you can fork that repository, which means you are making a copy of it, and you will be creating a new branch. Then you can commit changes. Commit changes meaning saving the changes that you have made to the copy, and then you can submit a pull request. Once you submit a pull request, one of the maintainers will review that code that you have uh, requested. Okay, so once they review that, if they have any suggestions, if they want you to make any changes, then there is a whole lot of discussion of proposed changes that go on. And finally, if they accept everything, then they will merge the feature branch into the master so that your code gets added to the main or branch. So this is the actual workflow of GitHub. Uh, so this is the end of our presentation. Now let's get into work. So I hope you all can see the GitHub repository that I'm doing. Uh, just to let me know if any of them don't who don't have a GitHub account is here, I will just tell you what to do. Is there anyone who doesn't have a GitHub account? So I hope almost everyone has a GitHub account. Okay. So so now what I'm going to do is this is the official repository of our DSMBCT website. Okay. So when I go to this repository, I can see there is one issue being reported. So that issue was reported by from my side to show you a demo of how it works. So this is the website, repository of our website. And here you can see there are numerous topics. Hacktoberfest website HTML Hacktoberfest 2020. So if you are making contributions which need to be counted for the Hacktoberfest, you need to make contributions to repositories that are labeled as Hacktoberfest. Okay. So how you can register for Hacktoberfest, I will show you now. Go to the official site of Hacktoberfest, hacktoberfest.digitalocean.com. So this will be your t-shirt this year if you qualify for that. Now, what you have to do is click on Start Hacking, and you will have to provide your GitHub user ID for that. So you need to sign in with your GitHub account. So I haven't made any pull request yet, but I will be making one soon. So here, once you are in this, you can see uh, this is your progress. So I have made just 0 pull requests. I haven't made any pull requests till now. So if you need any resources, you can go to the resources tab, and there will be resources for everyone. I would say everyone, for beginners, for maintainers, for event organizers, and for companies as well. So in case of beginners, Hacktoberfest is not just a one thing where you can start with. Okay, there are many other initiatives, and if you click on these things, the first timers only, good first issues, up for grabs, and awesome for beginners. These are repositories which are specifically for beginners in open source contribution. Okay, so if you are a beginner or if you are new to this field, you can explore these repositories. And there are some other activities similar to Hacktoberfest. One such thing is 24 pull request, where you have to make 24 pull requests during the month of December, and you will be getting some sparks for that as well. But try to make meaningful contributions. Okay. So this year, when Hacktoberfest started, there were some people who were spamming the pull request with just changing some typo errors or fixing some spaces, etc. like that. So they have made it clear that they will be evaluating your pull request, and the maintainer has to approve that pull request as well. So in this participation this year, either you can get a free T-shirt or you can plant a tree if you complete 4 pull requests. So this year they will be giving out T-shirts for the first 70,000 participants during this Hacktoberfest. First 70,000 participants who complete 4 valid pull requests. So how to find repositories to contribute or how to do that, that is one of the major things that you will have in doubt. We will get into that shortly. So as I said earlier, this is the repository for our DSC website. Now there is one issue. So I was the one that put that issue. So let's see what is the issue is. So here you can see the title of the issue is YouTube thing, and it was just opened by me. And there are two labels, enhancement and good first issue. So this good first issue means it is beginner friendly. I mean, anybody with the basic knowledge about web can do that. So it is a good first issue. And enhancement means this is not a bug. I just want an update or I just want a feature update that I want the YouTube link of DAC and PCT in the home page. So this is the issue, right? Add the link to your YouTube channel in the home page. So that is the issue, and we have two labels: enhancement and good first issue. So just take a note about this good first issue because I will be discussing about it later. So in order to do that, first I will be forking this repository. I hope that everybody can see this fork option. So forking means it makes a copy of this repository in my account. Okay, it will take 1 to 2 minutes. See now, you can see that it is dsmbct.github.io. So I have made a copy of the repository here. Oh, I have made a copy of the repository here. So what I'm going to do next is, in order to edit this, I have to get it to my local machine, right? So in order for that, you have to clone this repository. Cloning means making a copy in your local system. We don't have much time to dive into GitHub Git commands. I will walk you through that. So firstly, before I do, I hope you're able to see my screen, right? So this is the official site of Git, and if you want to work with Git, then you have to download this based on the operating system which you are using, maybe Mac, Windows, or Linux. And for proper documentation regarding GitHub commands or Git commands, you can refer the documentation. So just now I will be going through some of the basic commands. Okay. So first of all, you need to install Git. I have already installed it in my system, so I'm just going to. So as I said earlier, now I have to clone the repository from the GitHub, right? So so now in order to clone that, the command is git clone and the repository URL which you copied from it. Now when I click enter, it is cloning into DAC basically.io, which means it is making a copy of the repository in my local machine. I guess it's taking them some time due to the network. While that happens, we will be using the card editor Visual Studio Code. Okay, so you can use anything that you like, maybe Sublime or Atom or anything. For this purpose, I'm just using Visual Studio Code. Okay, VS Code is as well open source and free to use. So if you go through this, you can see how many companies use Git as a version control system. Almost everything that you know about Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Twitter, LinkedIn, Netflix, everything use Git as the version control system. Okay, it is one of the sort of skills for developers as well. You need to have a bit of knowledge about Git and GitHub. So let's check if it's done. No, it's taking some time as well. So what I will be doing is that the issue was the issue was to add a YouTube link for that, right? So what I will be doing is that I'm going to create a new branch known as feature. I guess I should have made it before cloning the repository. Or else we don't need that since it's just yeah, it's almost there. So if you have any doubts regarding Git or want to know more about the Git commands, you can look for a Git cheat sheet. So you can have Git cheat sheet from your GitHub education. This is one of the best resource that you will get to learn about Git. It's just a PDF. You can download that and uh, go through the GitHub commands. So I heard that you were not able to see my command line earlier. So is it visible now? Is the command line visible? Okay, okay. Thanks for letting me know about that. So here what we did was git clone. That is the command to make a copy of the repository in the local machine. So git clone, uh, then the URL of the GitHub repository that you were going to change. So this is the link of our YouTube channel. So this will be, we will be adding this link to the repository. So that was the issue of the feature update requested. So we'll be adding that link. So meanwhile, while it's downloading, I will just walk you through how to search for repositories. Okay. Earlier, I mentioned about good first issues. So good first issues means repositories that are beginner friendly. So you can search like label. So if you search for label good first issue, you can see. So these are the repositories, or these are the issues which are labeled as good first issue, and you can check out which one is there. I mean, see, when we look at the symbol, this is the symbol of a pull request. So a pull request has already been made to this particular issue. This, I mean, this green exclamation mark shows that the issue is still open. That means it is open for contribution. This is this repository. This pull request is already closed. Are you able to view my screen? Sorry, I guess there was some problem with the connection. Are you able to view the screen now? Currently, I'm presenting a screen from the GitHub. So, are you able to view that? Okay, fine. So, what I was talking about, how to search for repositories to contribute, right? I will just walk you through once again. So, you can search using labels. So, in case of label, if you are good trust issue, okay, if you search with a label good trust issue, you will see repositories being listed where the issue is labeled as good first issue. So here you can see here it is labeled as good first issue. So what does this mean? Good first issue means the issue is beginner friendly regarding I mean according to the tech stack of that repository. maybe web development, AI, ML, or anything. It is beginner friendly. Any beginner with a basic knowledge can take up that issue and work on that and pull, put a code for that. So if you want to look for repositories labeled as Hacktoberfest, you can search like this, label colon Hacktoberfest, and you will see the repositories that are being marked for Hacktoberfest this year. Okay, so here you can see there are around 128K issues in this. So how to know if this issue is open or not? If this is an issue, and then so when you search with labels, it's not just about issues. There will be many pull requests will be listed. Closed issues may be listed. So first you can search is it an issue? Is colon issue means if it's an issue, it will show the repository in that. And the state of the issue, if it is open or closed. You can contribute on closed issues. So state open. So if you search like that, you can see, say, add resource to learn Android development with Java. This is something, an issue. Okay. So you can go through these issues and contribute accordingly. If you want to look for a specific language, for example, if you are interested in Flutter, let's say, so the language used may be Dart. If you search for languages Dart, you will see, yeah, which have Dart as the language in the repository, or otherwise you can like go for general programming languages like Java. So here you can see UI change. So just search for issues like this, and when you see an issue which you think you can contribute to, grab that opportunity and make a pull request accordingly. Okay, so this is how you search for repositories based on your interest, like what may be the label and all. So once you get started, make sure that you contribute to the during this month or during Hacktober if you want to get the face facts, you need to contribute to repositories labeled as Hacktoberfest. Okay, here you can see every repository has a label called Hacktoberfest, and only the contributions made to those repositories marked with Hacktoberfest will be counted for that. Okay, so now I hope it's the partial, I mean, the terminal visible to you all. I hope there was some error with that, so error with the system. So I'm just going to the GitHub as well. Sorry, there was some error with my system. So let's just head back to GitHub. So here, this is the repository that we just forked from PAC right? So this is just a small change, and I know where the code is, so I'm just going to do it through this browser. But most preferably, you need to use a code editor for that. Okay. Otherwise, you cannot do the proper contribution. So it's just one line of code. So home page, as you all know, the home page of the web page will be index.html. I'm just going clicking on that, and this is the home page. So here you can see these are the section of our social buttons, right? We have the link to our Facebook page, Twitter, Medium, and etc. Now we have to add a link for our YouTube page as well. So in order to do that, I'm just going to click on edit. I'm sorry that I couldn't show you on the local machine. There is some error with that. So edit this file. So now this is the homepage of our website TSAMBCT. And now when you scroll down through, here you can see the social icons of Facebook, Twitter, Medium, and GitHub, right? So I'm going to add the YouTube link right here. So once it's done, it will be automatically updated. Okay, so let's go back to the repository. And here you can see the section keep in touch and the social icons. I hope it is visible to you. So in the section we have Facebook, Twitter, and Medium. Now we are just going to add the link of our we are just going to add the link of our YouTube channel. So this is the link of our YouTube channel. The icon should be so and as well you can see that the link of GitHub is there. So I have made these two changes. Okay, as you see, I just add the link to our YouTube page and the link to the GitHub. So now this is around how many lines of code? So it's around 577. So my maintainer wants to know which line I changed. Okay, when I go to preview changes, you can see these are the lines that I just changed. So this is one of the major applications of version control system. Okay, you know exactly where the change was made and by who. So this change is not at saved. This is the change that I made. Initially there was a line like this and I changed that to two lines, added the YouTube and the line numbers are 490 and 491. We can see exactly what change we had made that. So now I am going to commit changes. Commit changes mean it is similar to saving your file, but more than that, you will tell them what is the change that you made and what is the change that you made. So this commit change add social links. So this was the basic idea of that. Okay. So add links to add links to YouTube and GitHub. Okay. Now I'm just going to commit the changes, and now I need to uh, create a new branch. Actually, what do we mean by patch is just uh, a feature update like that. It is just an auto-generated name for the branch. If you have to create a new branch with a specific name, it's up to you. Okay. So when I create this branch, I have the option to propose the changes, which means that uh, this will be saved to a new branch in my repository and I have to make a pull request in order to add that to the original repository. So I'm going to propose this change. So now, say I all automated testing was one of the features which I mentioned about GitHub. So here you can see this is able to merge. This shows that the code that I have added to the copy of my repository does not affect any of the code in the original repository. So this is my branch, and now I'm going to start a pull request. Okay, so add social links and right here it is the description. So I will just do it once more. Add social links. Okay, so these are just two things. So while you are tracking an issue, you may come up with similar bug sets. Right. Okay. So earlier my issue was just to add a YouTube link, but when I examined the code, I found that there was no link in the GitHub. There was an icon for GitHub, but there was no link. So I just added it also. So you can add these contents in your pull request. So once a maintainer sees, he would only look at this and then the code you have to do. So now I'm going to just create the pull request. So the pull request is created at social links and it is able to merge the pull request. So once I merge this pull request, it will just get merged to my original branch. So now the pull request is made and it is merged. And once a pull request is merged, it closes automatically. And now when I go to the code tab, I can see this was the last thing done in this repository. I told you GitHub keep tracks of the changes that you have made. So the last change that was made is merged a pull request to this repository. Okay. Now, when I look here, when I go to the site, once again I'm going to refresh. We can see that the YouTube icon is not added or the GitHub link is not working properly. Okay. The reason is that we have only updated in our repository, the copy that I have made. So if you look here, you can see this branch is two commits ahead of DSC and DCP. So my master branch is DSC and DCP, and I have made two commits or two changes which are not present in that branch. So I had to create a pull request in order to propose these changes to my original repository. So I'm just going to click on this pull request. So here, as I said, automatic tests have been done and it is able to merge. And here you can see the changes that I have made. I have made two commits. The first one is add social links and the second was merge the pull request. How many files are changed? Just one file and one contributor, that is only me. So here, this is the change that I have made. So just consider a situation if you are making this contribution to a whole a big project and if the maintainer wants to know what exactly did you change. So without version control, he will have to go through the lines from 1 till n, and sometimes he may not be able to find out the change that you made. But with the help of version control systems and GitHub, we can easily identify what the change that you have made. So here, as I mentioned earlier, these two lines are the changes that I have contributed to this repository. Okay, so two additions and one deletion. I have removed one line and added two lines. And there is no problem in merging this with the repository. So I'm just going to create pull request. Okay. So now I'm just going to create a pull request. So the pull request has been created to the original. Now see here you can see that uh, it is the original repository to which I made the pull request. Okay. So these are GitHub actions which fulfilled. You can see these tests have been run and the branch has no conflict with the base one. So we can merge this pull request. Okay, since I am the maintainer of this main repository as well, I am able to merge it. So if I want to know about I will just let you know what the changes have been. So here when I open a pull request, you can see there are 2 commits and 5 changes. So the maintainer of the project will be going to files changed. And here you can see the changes that have been made. Okay. So when I click on review changes, I can review. And here is the part. So I can just comment on that if I want something extra, or if I want that person to change a code, or if I want to make him add some more features, I can leave a comment and it will automatically update here. So he had to do that. Otherwise, I can approve the code and request changes as well. So now there is nothing. I'm just going to approve it. Yeah. As I'm the pull request, although I can't approve the code. So this is what happens. This is what happens. Once the maintainer, since I'm the person who put this pull request, another maintainer can only approve this. But this is happens when a maintainer looks at my pull request. You can see that there are 3 options: comment, approve, and request. So once I can make any changes since I'm the author. So if I want some feature to be added, then I can say comment on that, or just a general feedback. And if you want any request changes, any updates regarding the pull request, I can use this option. And if I want to upload this pull request, I can use this. Okay. So we can merge it even if it's. So once that code is reviewed, the person will be able to merge the pull request. So I'm just going to merge it. I cannot review the code as I'm the author, but I'm able to merge it since I'm the maintainer of this repository. While you're contributing to repositories, it is up to the maintainer. After review, he will let you know whether the code is acceptable or not, and he will be able to confirm the merge. So now I'm confirming the merge. Okay. So the code will be updated. When I go to the code tab, you can see this was the last thing done in this repository, that is merge the pull request from my side. And now the issue still remains, right? What I have to do is, okay, so the issue is resolved now. So I just got issue resolved and close with comment. So the issue is resolved, and now you cannot see any issues right here. When I go to the code tab, there is no issues. The issues are resolved. Okay. So did it got updated in our website? We will. It will take a few minutes to just get updated. Yes. Here now you can see the YouTube icon is here and the GitHub as well. When I click on GitHub, it will redirect to our page. And when I click on YouTube, it redirects to our page as well. Yes, so the pull request has been accepted. So that's the basics of open source and pull request. I hope I made it clear to you guys. I'm sorry that I couldn't demo the Git commands due to some issues with my machine. So if you are looking for a place to start or place to contribute, I would suggest checking out the repository that we have created. So under the DSC and BCT Hacktoberfest, here you have every tutorials that are available to get yours started with open source software. Here projects for contribution. Here you can look for projects for contribution which are open issues and all. Just like I said before, if you click on that, it will redirect you to the possible updates, right? Possible issues there. You can see 38 key issues are possible with Hacktoberfest label. So you can choose from anything which matches your taste, maybe Android, maybe uh, JavaScript, web, or anything, and you can contribute to that. So you can make a pull request. Then, if you want to just search for topics based, I mean, let's say web development. So here we have 6 issues which are currently open in terms of web development. You can see 6 issues. Now, if you want to specify a domain like AI/ML, you can just say machine learning. There are so many topics out there you can explore yourself. Oh, sorry. It's fine. So here I have given the label as machine learning, right? So I have listed proposed related to machine learning topics. So you can search for your own area or your own domain using this. And as I said earlier, you have everything, the Git tutorial, Git sheet, how to create a pull request, and video tutorials on that. Everything is added in our repository. And if you would like to know more about it, you can just check out the repository here. Okay. So I guess that's it, and that's it. And so that's it. I hope you got an idea about what is uh, what is Hacktoberfest, and the concepts of what is. Sorry. So that's all. I hope you got an idea regarding. I hope you got an idea regarding the concepts of Hacktoberfest and open source. So thank you for joining our session. We will be happy to help you and guide you through this 1 month, and we will be sending out invitation to a Telegram group where we will guide you through the steps, and we will provide you with some basic projects where you can contribute to. So it will be sent out to your registered email IDs. Thank you for joining the session. Have a great day. Thank you.